I do want to ask you about grocery prices, Gary, because I'm sure your members get it all the time. We're all feeling the pinch. We've talked about this. It's night and day since COVID. Like, I look at my grocery bill now, and it blows my mind how expensive things are. And like you said, you want your grocers want to stay open. They don't want to be out of business, grocery stores. But what do you say to customers just are like at their wits' end saying, why is my grocery bill so high?
That we feel your pain because remember, independent grocers are not Bay Street grocers. As I said, they live in the communities they serve, so they know what customers are feeling themselves. And there's just too many factors that have been at play that are impacting prices. I said to one person a few months ago, it's like the four horsemen of the apocalypse have taken up careers in the food industry. We've had climates, droughts, wildfires, the war in Ukraine, which is still having an impact on the supply chain for certain products, the tariffs, the whole disruption that's come to our supply chain. It's just constant. And when those things happen, yes, they do have an impact on prices, but they are things that we can't control. And it would be very easy for us to point the finger at the manufacturers, we call them the suppliers, and say, well, it's their fault. We have to buy them from them. We don't do that because we know all of the factors that are driving up their costs, and they're being sensitive about it too. And the fact is, this is happening worldwide. It's not a Canadian phenomenon. So it's not an easy or maybe a palatable thing that people want to hear. But the fact is, those things are just beyond our control.
Mm-hmm. And we don't have a crystal ball, which is another thing we don't have that's beyond our control. But do you see, will these stabilize, Gary? Do you think in 5 years from now we'll say, okay, things are at a little bit of a decent point? Because it just feels like now that it's full on skyrocket mode.
Yeah, I do predict it will start to stabilize. One of the opportunities that's come out of the challenge of dealing with the Trump administration has been the desire to reduce interprovincial trade barriers and start, doing more within our own country. I think that will lead to more opportunities for Canadian companies and is something we welcome. And I think that will help stabilize prices. I really believe that. One of the things, though, that we're saying to governments, plural, the provinces and Ottawa, is that we support free trade in Canada, but we also want to see fair trade in Canada. And what we mean by that is it's one thing to say you want to buy Canadian. The reality is we are going to have to invest in Canadian. There are investments that this country is going to have to make, and that's going to require expenditures and investments from everybody, including industry. It's one thing, again, to walk into a store in Toronto and, be able to grab all the products that you can. Let me tell you, the cost of transportation and distribution in this country for many areas of Canada are significantly higher. Some of them, it costs 3 times the cost of getting a product to Newfoundland and Labrador just because of the boat, the ferry and those kind of things. There's just so many products where those costs are much higher. If we can use the change in relationship that we've now had with the Americans, because we're pivoting from a north-south axis to an east-west supply chain axis. And I think that offers us some opportunities. And in the future, I believe 5 years from now, we'll see a much stable and a much more secure supply chain.
That's good to hear.
All right, good stuff. Gary, before we let you go tonight, any closing thoughts, anything you want to add?
No, I just think that when governments are talking about, reducing interprovincial trade barriers, that they remember that we do have to talk about free trade and doing more for our rural and remote communities. We're all Canadians, and I don't think we should just be focusing on urban areas. And I think sometimes that gets lost in our deliberations and our decision making. We forget about those smaller communities.